Hi everybody, this will be part 33 in the character rigging tutorial series. This video we're going to finalize the hierarchy and reduce the amount of stuff that's visible by default in the outliner. So if I look at my outliner over here, I have a bunch of stuff going on, and this is a good way to kind of clean up and organize your scene so we don't have as much stuff from an animation standpoint to be able to accidentally select and adjust. We can also talk about using layers over here to be helpful for how to animate as well. All right, so I have some geometry pieces, and I can group all of those together. So let's hit Control G to group, and we will call that geometry. Okay, let's say geometry GRP. So what's that? Geometry group, because I already have a layer named geometry over here. So that'll be my geometry group. Okay, anytime you're kind of making big changes, always just make sure you save your scene as well. So I have however many different objects you have geometry wise, group them all together and call that one geometry group. Now what we don't want to do is group joints, controls, IKs, and geometry underneath the same hierarchy. All that good control rig that we've set up so far is not going to work. So we still need separate groups, separate hierarchies for the geometry, joints, controls, and IKs. All right, so we have our joint system, and that's by itself anyway, so we really don't need to create a group there. But let's see, where are all our IKs? So right now our IKs are just in these two groups, so we just have IKs on the legs. And then all the rest of this stuff is groups or controls. So let's go ahead and take our two IK groups, hit Control G to group those together. We'll call those IK GRP, IK group. So that way that reduces the visible list of the IKs that we can see. All right, so one of the things we can do is difficult to kind of move the entire character around this way. What I have to do is select the pelvis, and then select the eye, and then select the feet and move the entire character. So one final control that we're going to create is going to be called a move all control. So I'm going to create a new circle, and typically what I like to do is get in my control vertex, select the two outer front vertices and scale those in. So that way that gives me a good initial point of where the character should be facing from a front view. Whoops. There we go. So we'll do something like that. Maybe correct that a little bit more. Move that back some. There we go. So that's a pretty good indication that the character should face this front direction. And the character could be placed right in the middle of this as default. Now the idea with this move all control, let's go ahead and name this control move all, is that this is not meant for motion. This is only meant to place the character in initial standpoint before animating. So let's do edit delete by type history. Let's do modify freeze transformations. And we're ready to start parenting up our other controls to this move all control. So basically our two foot controls get parented to the move all control, P for parent. Our two knee controls are also going to get parented to that move all control, so P for parent. Our control pelvis gets parented to that move all control, P for parent. Our dual eye controls get parented to that move all control, P for parent. And then, not that this matters for motion wise, but just to clean up your hierarchy, we're going to take those two left and right hand controls that we create the set driven keys for the fingers and just parent them underneath the move all control as well. So what that will do is give us the opportunity to pick and move that entire character up and even rotate that entire character. And it's a good kind of pinpoint method to move and place the character where we want the character to start animating. Maybe we'll come back in and do the enable overrides for the color. Let's try to pick something we haven't used before. Maybe that green. Maybe that's a good green color. Why not? So that way we know this is the move all. Now the move all is never meant to be animated. This is just meant to place the character in the scene. But what that did was that created one move all control that is able to move the entire character. Okay. We can probably also be able to take all of those twist and helper groups. Okay, and parent that underneath the move all as well. Let's just make sure that's not going to screw up anything. So now if I move the move all, yep, that still is working properly. Let's try to rotate it. Yep, still working properly. So basically all of my controls and all of my groups for my controls are now parented underneath this move all control. So I have a joint, one joint node for my hierarchy, one geometry node, one IK node, and one control node. This is the Unreal's mannequin. So at this point I'm just using that as reference. I don't need that anymore. I can remove that out. I can also remove my layer out for the mannequin as well. Alright, so my hierarchy is still separate. My joints have to be in a separate hierarchy, geometry in a separate hierarchy, IKs in a separate hierarchy, controls in a separate hierarchy. But as long as we leave everything in separate hierarchies, we can still group underneath those 4 major groups or nodes that we have set up. I don't need image planes anymore because I use an image plane to start modeling the character, so we can remove that out. And I have 2 groups right now. I have a geometry group and I have a joints group. So I can now create 2 other groups. I can take my IK group and let's create a new layer. It's the far right button over here. And we'll rename this one. Let's say IK underscore layer. There we go. So that way my IKs can be turned on and off. Let's rename our joints layer, joints layer. And same thing for geometry, geometry layer. So there's no confusion. And then the final one is taking my control, and all I have to do is really take the control move all and create a new group with that selected object in there, and we'll call this one controls layer. All right, so now everything is in a separate group. You can easily turn them on and off, not give the opportunity to be visible. So really when I'm going to be animating the character, I need to only have my controls visible. I set up controls for the entire body to be able to move. So what that means is my geometry layer, I can use this third box from the left right here, that's blank by default, and change that. T means template, so that makes it so I can't really see it. If I change that to reference, that means I can't select my geometry layer, but it's visible. Okay, you can also hit the V to turn that layer on and off visibility wise. I don't ever need to select my joints because I have controls for everything. So I can turn my joints layer to a reference layer. That might make them black, which is fine. That just means that they can't be selected. And then I never need to animate my IKs because I have controls that drive the motion of those IKs. So let's take those, that layer and make that a reference layer. All right, so I really don't even need to see my joints layer, so I can hit the visibility to turn off my joints layer. And I can also, I don't need to see my IKs, so I can turn off my IKs layer as well. So the thing that really should be visible is my geometry and my controls. So the rest can be hidden and turned as a reference layer. So those are some easy ways to organize and adjust the hierarchy and clean up the file, organize it a little more so that way we are ready to start animating. We're going to do one more thing in the next video, which is to be able to turn off or rather lock and hide certain attributes for each control. So that way there's no way a control can move when it doesn't need to move or rotate when it doesn't need to rotate. So we'll come back and do that in the next video, but this video finalized the hierarchy and the organization of our scene.